Have you experienced sexual abuse? And have you found it difficult to navigate sex and intimacy since? Do you get the ick sometimes? And do you feel unexpectedly triggered and it feels like it comes out of nowhere? Do you sometimes feel great about sex and intimacy? It's something that you really want to engage in, but your body doesn't seem to agree? Does your partner take it personally? Do they feel rejected by it? And is it difficult for you to explain exactly what's going on for you? Do you feel guilty about your responses? Have you ever wondered why that is? Do you ever worry that the things that you feel might not be normal and that there might be something wrong with you? You're not alone. I'm Shelley Diprose. I'm a registered sex, relationship and trauma therapist. I'm using my experience from working privately and in the NHS to normalise some of the things that you might be feeling in sex and intimacy if you've experienced sexual abuse. Some of your reactions might feel unsavoury and unexpected, and some of what we talk about in this series might be uncomfortable for you to hear. I'm going to go about it and deliver it as gently and kindly as I can. In this 5-part series funded by the South Yorkshire Crime Prevention Unit, we'll be exploring some of the things that you might have feared speaking about. My hope is to normalise some of the responses that you might be feeling and to help you connect positively to your sexual self again. Some of the content that we talk about today might be triggering. I want you to take it steady. I want you to take breaks. Be mindful of who might be around you and who could be listening to this content. So today in episode 4, we are going to be talking about how sexual problems can occur after sexual abuse. Some of the things that I mention are really common and will certainly happen outside of someone that's been through sexual abuse, but it's helpful to think about if you have these problems, might they be linked to sexual abuse, for example? So if you find that you are now having some sexual problems, and it's important to stress that this can come out of nowhere, you can be fine for a number of years and then this will come up, or it's quite common for people to experience problems when they have children that become the age that they were when childhood sexual abuse happened to them, or perhaps if they've got older children or a sibling that's sort of grown up into the age that you were. So sometimes they can be triggering that we're not particularly aware of. In terms of sexual problems, maybe it's something that you avoid being sexual, maybe you have trouble getting in the mood, maybe you have pain, maybe you don't feel anything. Maybe you feel that your body and mind are disconnected in terms of how you engage sexually. You can experience erectile or ejaculation issues, you can get vaginal pain, you can have a lot of tension in the body, and a lot of these things really create shame on their own as they are. But if the idea of thinking that those problems are linked to sexual abuse as well, it creates an extra layer of shame, which is particularly uncomfortable to think about. Sometimes these sexual acts will only occur in certain sexual situations. So it may well be, for instance, that you can have penetrative sex or you can have a partner use their hands on you. But if it's something oral, then you might experience problems there. You might not be able to orgasm through it. We're going to talk about how some of these sexual problems can be related to sexual trauma and can follow from the aftermath of sexual abuse. Remember, as I say in all the episodes, you're not broken and you're not alone. So what do we mean by sexual problems? Let's give some names to those things. They can be pain or numbingness during sex. People with vulvas can experience like a burning sensation, an itching sensation, which sometimes, if everything's been checked out medically, can be related to something called vulvodynia. There can be pain in the vagina where the vaginal walls will involuntarily tense up and it can feel like nothing can get inside there and it can be very, very painful. There can be erectile issues, ejaculation issues, either early or delayed. There can be a lack of orgasm. There can be no interest in libido, so no interest in sex, and arousal that can vanish mid-act, as we spoke about in podcast 3. And there can be flashbacks, there can be horrible, unwelcome images that come to you during sex at the most inconvenient times. These experiences are incredibly common in survivors, and it really stands to reason that that would be the case, and it's not something that we particularly talk about. Of course, someone that's been through some sexual abuse is going to find sex and intimacy difficult. It's literally the thing that happened to them. And so to bring that into a different situation where, yes, it's consensual and yes, it's wanted, and yes, it's enjoyable, but telling that to the rest of the body can be a very different story. It absolutely makes sense that these would be linked and these would be connected. These experiences are really common in survivors. We certainly see a lot of it in my practice. It can happen regardless of gender, sexuality, age, and the type of abuse that you went through. It isn't related to how that went across. So for instance, if it was a violent act or if it was a rape within a relationship, the context of it isn't important. We can still be affected during sex as a result of sexual abuse. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you. It means that your body went through something and it's still reacting to that thing. So sexual trauma doesn't just affect the mind, it affects the body, and as we've been speaking about in previous podcasts, it affects the body in different ways. The genitals, the pelvic floor, the breath, all of your body, all hold memory. And when touch feels even slightly familiar to the type of abuse that we went through, then our body remembers that. Our bodies can respond to that memory by tensing up, by stopping what's happening, by causing a block, by causing a barrier. And it does all of that to try and keep us as safe as it knows how. It tries to stop things happening. I really want to make sure that people with penises understand, because I don't think there's enough emphasis out there for that erectile issues, difficulty ejaculating when you feel vulnerable, and shame around the things and the type of acts that were done to them can be so impactful on sexual problems. And I think, as we mentioned in other podcasts, because of the anatomy, it can sort of come across as even more obvious because there can be physical signs of that sexual problem. So as I said, a lack of ejaculation maybe, or losing an erection can be an example of those. Remember that the nervous system is at work here. It's not what's happening in your present mind. The nervous system is so powerful that it can send a message to the brain and it can stop what's happening. So although things mentally feel good and what might be happening physically might feel good, there's just this little element inside which says that it's not safe and we have to stop. And so, of course, the way to stop that for a penis is for it to not be hard anymore. And for someone with the vagina is for that vagina to close up. And vaginismus is very much a sign of that. You get this involuntary tightening where everything is closed shut very, very painfully, very tightly. And it's your body's way of saying, not getting in, not happening. It's also quite common for people to question their sexuality through what's happened to them. That doesn't mean that if you're questioning your sexuality, it's because of what happened. It's not as a result, but it is also common for those questions to come up. So do explore that really carefully. Try not to pathologise yourself with that, but it is common. So in terms of pain and pleasure, sometimes the body associates touch with danger. And so even wanted touch can cause an association and it can cause pain. Some people feel nothing at all. The numbness can be a trauma response. Quite often people will say to me, I can't feel anything, I just don't enjoy it, I'm not present. It's like I physically have no nerve endings in that part of my body. And that is an association to the trauma. It's a way of our body stopping us being attached to it. It can feel too exposed, too raw, too tender, too uncomfortable to think about and be attached to. It's also really common to avoid sex completely, to use maintenance factors such as going to bed early, staying up late, saying that you are in pain in some way that you're really not, trying to shut down any kind of physical touch. So quite often if people are trying to avoid sex, they will stop having like kisses and hugs with their partners because they're afraid it's going to lead somewhere and it's going to lead to an uncomfortable conversation and they're not quite sure what space they're going to be in. And when you experience sexual problems, it causes a lot of shame and embarrassment. And so, of course, you just don't want to go there in the first place. And so you try to stop that journey at the first possible hurdle. Avoiding sex hasn't got anything to do with how attractive you find your partner. It doesn't mean that you don't love them. It doesn't mean you don't want to be intimate with them. It's just that if you have a sexual problem and you don't know what to do about it, then you absolutely will avoid getting there in the first place. Your brain might know that rationally it's safe, but your nervous system and the trauma response hasn't caught up yet. Doesn't mean that you'll never want sex again. Doesn't mean that you will always have that problem. It means that the healing hasn't caught up. You might have had counselling, you might have had therapy to talk about things, but if the nervous system hasn't been worked with and the sexual side of things hasn't been worked with, we don't get this full joined up package where we have a really nice amount of healing that touches all those different areas. Feeling obligated to be sexual is one of the biggest problems with this. If you have a partner that feels a strong sense of rejection, if you say you're not in the mood for sex or you don't really want to do a particular act, and your partner behaves in a way that they really show their response to that rejection and it touches them deeply, you as a partner can feel obligated to provide that sexual experience, to be sexual, to engage in sexual acts. It's one of the worst things that you can do, because actually what you're doing is you're almost reenacting what's happened by doing things that you don't want to do 100% of the time with 100% consent. Then we're not creating a new neural pathway. We're not telling that trauma response that it needs to change. If you can work on having 100% consent 100% of the time, it's one of the best ways that you can work to heal that nervous response. So what healing can look like? There isn't a quick fix to this, but healing is most certainly possible. So you might work with a trauma-informed sex therapist as a couple or on your own, and they will give you techniques about how to work with things in a helpful way and to do it really safely so that you're taking the time for those new neural pathways to heal your nervous system in a really safe and healthy way. Reconnecting with touch is really helpful. Having boundaries about what touch looks like. Really simple method is to just keep a piece of clothing on parts of your body that you don't want to be touched. Remember that can change. You can update it at any time. You can take it off or put it on. It's always your choice and you can always set the pace of that. It is your body. Practicing solo touch with curiosity and no pressure is also really helpful. So when you touch your own body in the shower or the bath, just learning what that feels like for you, because you've got control in that moment and you can decide how you're being touched by yourself. Exploring what feels good rather than what you should be doing and being curious about it without shame. Working with your partner to provide clear communication about slowing down or speeding up. There's no one size fits all. It isn't the same for everybody. But if you work with a trauma-informed therapist, then they will help you to learn what works for you and for you to go at your pace. You get to define what sex is like for you. It's not based on your past, and your past doesn't get to say in that for the rest of your life. Do what feels right for your healing without judgment and without labels. What you like is what you like. And as I always say, as long as it's legal, as long as it's safe and no one's getting hurt, then you do what works for you. I hope that just by hearing this podcast, you start realising that you're not the only one, that your body did what it was wired to do, that you are normal, you are capable of being a sexual being. You are entitled and allowed to be orgasmic and experience arousal and pleasure. And you're allowed to be angry, and your story matters. You're allowed to take your time. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you for being so brave. If anything about this episode has been hard to hear, I encourage you to take care of yourself. Take a break, maybe take a walk, talk to someone that you feel safe with. I'm going to include some support resources below. And I invite you to do just a little brief exercise with me now, just to help you settle yourself back into this space. I appreciate you have got to go on with your day today, so let's get you into a nice place. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now is to just look around your space, and I just want you to find 5 things that you can see, and I want you to say them out loud really nicely. So we're just looking around, finding 5 things that we can see, saying them out loud. The reason that we say them out loud is that it's quite grounding within itself just to speak out loud, particularly when you spend a period listening to quite difficult things. Then what we're going to do is we're going to find 4 things that we can touch. So we can touch our hands, you might feel your bottom on the seat, you might feel your feet on the floor, you might feel your back against the chair. We're going to find 3 things that we can hear. I can hear the rain today, I can hear my voice, I can hear some birds singing. We're going to find 2 things that we can smell. It might be what's in the air generally, you might just smell your clothing, you might smell your own perfume. And we're just going to think about 1 thing that we can taste, which is usually the last thing we've eaten. I hope that's brought you back into a nice centered space where you feel present and you know that you're in the here and now. Thank you for listening. Go gently.